You know that feeling, right? When you're part of a project that just feels like it's spiraling out of control, it's chaotic. Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain and show you how to tame that chaos with a really solid strategic framework for managing project risk.
I mean, we've all been there. A project kicks off with so much excitement, a clear budget, a firm deadline, and then things start to slip. So, why does that happen? Why do so many projects that start with the best intentions end up late, over budget, or sometimes just failing completely?
Well, here's the thing. The answer is almost never some single dramatic explosion. Nope, it's usually a whole series of small, kind of minor issues that we either didn't see coming or, let's be honest, that we chose to ignore. These are those hidden risks that just snowball over time until, boom, they've become a massive problem.
But what if you had a system, a way to spot those little issues before they grow into monsters, a way to navigate all that uncertainty? Well, there is one, and it's a pretty straightforward 5-step process that can totally transform how you handle project risk.
And here it is. This is our game plan. We're going to start with a big picture roadmap. Then we'll get into identifying and prioritizing the actual risks. After that, we'll figure out how to deal with them. And finally, and this is key, we'll evaluate and improve. It's a full circle. So let's break down each step.
Okay, first up, the strategic roadmap. Now, here's the crucial part. Real risk management doesn't just start on day one of a new project. It actually begins way before that, at the entire organizational level.
This right here is a huge shift in thinking for a lot of people. See, this isn't about one project manager making a personal checklist. This is about the entire organization agreeing on a consistent, repeatable way to handle risk. You're building a system, not just a one-off plan.
So, what does this roadmap actually look like? Well, it's got to have these 4 key things. A clear methodology means everyone is playing from the same playbook. Standardized tools and templates mean everyone's speaking the same language. Consistent standards ensure that a high risk on one project means the same thing on another. And finally, you need clear guidance so your managers can make decisions with confidence.
All right, on to section 2, spotting and sizing risks. So now that we have our organizational roadmap, we can dive into the next 2 steps, which really go hand in hand, finding all the potential problems and then figuring out which ones really truly matter. You know, not all risks are created equal. They usually fall into one of 4 buckets. You've got variability. That's just uncertainty in things you know you have to do, like how long will this task really take? Then there's event risk. That's your classic what-if scenario, like what if our main supplier goes out of business? Ambiguity is risk that comes from not knowing enough, like trying to launch a product in a brand new market. And finally, emergent risks. These are the unknown unknowns, the stuff you literally can't predict. Now, to keep track of all these things, specifically those event risks we just talked about, you need something called a risk register. Think of this as the central command center for your risk plan. And notice that key phrase, living document. This is not something you make once, file away, and forget about. You have to be in it, updating it constantly.
Okay, so you've done the brainstorming, your team came up with a ton of potential risks, and your shiny new risk register is full. That's a great start, but you can't tackle everything at once. You'd be paralyzed. So the real question is, how do you know which risks to actually focus on first?
And that's where step 3, prioritization, comes into play. You've basically got 2 ways to go. Qualitative methods are quick and easy. You're just using descriptive scales like low, medium, or high. Quantitative methods, on the other hand, are way more precise, but they take more work. That's where you're assigning actual numbers, like saying there's a 20% chance of a risk that will cost us $50,000.
Moving on to section 3, from plan to action. So we've spotted the risks, we've ranked them. Now it's time to decide what we're actually going to do about them. Your actions are going to fall into 2 big categories. Proactive stuff is what you do before a risk happens to try and stop it or at least lessen the blow. Reactive plans, on the other hand, are your backup plans, your contingencies. This is what you do after a risk becomes a reality to manage the fallout. Any good plan needs a mix of both. And we come back to our risk register because this is where it really comes to life. It's not just a list of worries anymore, it's an action plan. For every single risk, you document its potential impact, the treatment plan you've chosen, and this is absolutely critical, you assign an owner. You name the person who is responsible for managing it. That ownership is everything for accountability. We've made it to our final section, which covers step 5, the improvement loop. Now, I'm going to say it,
This might be the most important and the most frequently skipped step in the entire process. This is how you make sure you're smarter on the next project.
Just because the project is finished, it doesn't mean the work is done. The absolute best teams don't just file away a final report and move on. No way. They take the time to really learn from what happened, the good and the bad, and turn that experience into wisdom for the future.
The whole evaluation process really boils down to two simple but incredibly powerful questions. First, what worked? Which of our plans were actually effective? Let's make sure we do those things again. And second, what didn't work? Where were our blind spots? Which risks did we totally miss? Which of our plans completely failed? And that's the ultimate goal, right? You take the answers from those questions, all those lessons learned, and you feed them right back into step one. You use them to make your high-level organizational roadmap even better. This is what closes the loop and makes sure your whole organization just keeps getting better and better at this stuff.
So, let's wrap this up. What are the big things to remember? First, real risk management is a proactive, 5-step process, not just putting out fires. Second, that risk register is your best friend. It's your essential tool for tracking risks and your action plans. And finally, always evaluate your process so you create that continuous loop of improvement. So, I'll leave you with one final thought to put all this into practice. Think about the most important project you are on right now. Using what we just talked about, what is one unmanaged risk that you can now see, that you can now identify and start planning for? Seriously, go ahead and write it down. That's your first step.